Hello, my name is Sifu Chris Bouguyon. I am in Richardson, Texas at the SimplyAware Wellness and Training Center. Today we're going to have a conversation about chronic pain. I'd like to share my experience both personally and professionally with you related to pain specifically, and giving you the opportunity to learn a little bit about how to manage chronic pain from a more traditional Chinese medical approach. My background is as a Medical Qigong therapist. I've spent the better part of the last 26 or 27 years working with people dealing with varying levels of pain, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical. I come from a background personally growing up with a lot of different either physical, mental, emotional, or traumatic events that have created what we call a unique pain signature. And when we look at the human as a complex being, we want to understand this component, particularly when we're dealing with trying to get a handle on pain. We want to look at all three components here, mental, emotional, and physical, because this is what makes up the human condition. And if we're dealing with physical pain, it doesn't just affect the physical body, it engages our emotional balance as well as our mental balance. You know, acute pain gives you, like you smash your toe when you're walking through an area, you're going to have trouble focusing for a little while. You're going to likely have an emotional outburst as a result of it, probably send a few choice words across the room. With a chronic pain condition, what we've observed, what I've experienced even in myself, is that there's that physical component, but it's never quite gone. It can be a little stronger one day, it could be lighter the next, but it's never quite gone because there's an underlying injury, there's an underlying trauma that has taken root, if you will. Could be dealing with scar tissue or different things like that, or just an instability, a structural instability. But in that situation where it's just never quite gone, the relationship you have with that is critical to your overall well-being. And this is what I want to get into. Because this has been an important part of my life since I was 17 years old. And initially in my relationship with pain, it was very much about trying to beat it, trying to make it go away. You know, suck it up, buttercup. In the military, it was does that hurt? Yeah, okay, we'll do more. Push harder, that kind of thing. Even physical therapy, pain is weakness leaving the body. You know, no pain, no gain. Those kinds of mindset are deeply embedded in our culture, and they do not serve the overall well-being of the individual. Certain circumstances may call for that. My thought is, you know, with all the veterans that I've worked with, fellow veterans and combat veterans, if you're in a situation where you have to ignore pain to save your life or to save your buddy's life, totally get it, understand. But in a day-to-day situation, that's not going to serve you. It creates an environment of conflict and confrontation within your body that is going to wear you down. I personally had an experience about 2.5 years ago where I'm telling on myself a little bit here, but I think it's important to the message. I had just finished 2 days before teaching a veterans workshop on chronic pain and working to manage it. So we use a lot of traditional Chinese practices to do this work, Qigong in particular. And I'd been teaching that workshop and, you know, had a good time, great group, a lot of success with it, been doing it for years. But I also had a big trip that was coming up and I was trying to get ready for it. And I had a few circumstantial little tweaks to my low back that happened over the course of a couple of weeks before, during, and you know, and after, before and after the pain workshop. But that Monday, I had several meetings, and then I had a trip to get ready for the next day. So I was really in a rush. And in that environment, I woke up and my back was pretty irritated. And I didn't listen. I kept pushing. And initially it was hard to get my socks on, but I really needed to go. I had some meetings to go to, and I was limping out to the car, and I was trying to push and just, you know, kind of that suck it up buttercup mindset of just keep going. And when I got to the car, I couldn't even lift my right leg into the car. The pain level had gotten so intense. And I said, okay, I canceled my morning meetings, rescheduled some others, and went to, went back up to the bedroom, and in the bathroom, just walking into the bathroom, I got a shot of pain because I kept pushing that literally knocked me cold. I passed out. That was very humbling for me because I've had a lot of pain. I've dealt with a lot of significant injuries. I've never had a shot of pain that actually knocked me out. And so I want to share my understanding and my work through that process, as well as everything else that we've done today. This 3 layers is critical to that understanding because in that particular scenario I just shared with you, yes, I had a physical pain, I tweaked it, I created an environment where I kept pushing past the warning signs, and then I started getting emotional about it. I started getting irritated and frustrated. My body was taking advantage, or getting the best of me, if you will. So I started getting angry. And then that anger then created a myopic situation. That sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, which puts us into tunnel vision, kicked in. And when that happened, I was no longer thinking or reasoning. I was just fighting. And my body won. It had to knock me out to do it, but it won. So just to give you a perspective, when I first woke up in the morning, I'm going to say that I was at a 5 on the pain level, on the physical pain level. As I kept pushing and that bumped up a little bit, I started getting angry, irritated. So then all of a sudden I've got a 2 going on, an additional 2 points of pain were kicked in because of the intensity of my emotions. And then my mind locked in and I started really pushing the issue, pushing my own agenda. I don't have time for this. And so I'm going to kick in another couple of points here. So now I'm looking at 9. So this 5 physical turned into, with these layers, a 9. And I'd say when it jumped to 10, that's when I went out cold. Each of us dealing with life is a unique combination of these 3. Some people may be dealing with high levels of anxiety. I consider that very significant pain. Somebody may be dealing with deep emotional grief, anger, fear, sadness that's heaviest. They may not be in physical pain, but it all plays in. So the more we learn to understand this relationship that is very much unique to ourselves, what I call a pain signature, it's really important to get to a place where you can recognize where you are and how it's framed out for you on any given day. It's not going to be like that particular day, this is where I was. The next day, the day after that, every time it changes. How much rest I've gotten, how well I've eaten, how much I've rested, whatever it happens to be, each time my signature is different. Initially, when we're starting to look at developing a relationship with chronic pain, we have to start somewhere. And the framework that I like to use is a pain child. If you consider a toddler, a 3-year-old, they have a communications, they have a vocabulary to work with, and they want your attention. Well, what happens if you ignore them? Do they just go away and say, oh, okay, well, it's not my turn to have the attention? No, that doesn't work too well. We've raised 3 boys and that didn't work so well. If you ignore a 3-year-old, they're going to get louder. Pain is the same way. If you ignore it, it's going to get louder. And so the initial framework we like to use is the pain child. I'd like you to consider treating your pain, whatever that pain is, like a child, where you would bring it in. If it's crying, if it's starting to try and get your attention, you bring it in and listen to it and see what kind of information you can get from it. Communication is going to be key to establishing an understanding. The other piece that I think is really important in this is being honest with yourself. How often do we lie ourselves about our pain levels, about what we can or cannot do on any given day? So if my back is hurting and my friend of mine needs to move, I may say, well, I'm fine, and I'll go and I'll do that, and then I'll suffer for it later. And while I love my friends and I want to be there for them, I have to be honest with myself and say, you know, is the level of pain I'm dealing with enough that I'll go help them move, I'll drive, but I'm only going to pick up small boxes, or I'll do the packing, you guys do the lifting. And being reasonable with myself, that takes a level of honesty with self that's critical to the overall connection you create in order to develop that friendship, as we're talking about it, with your pain, with your own being, really. Pain is just one of the catalysts for that. Being able to accept where you are at any point in time based on this pain signature is an additional critical component. So just because I'm being honest doesn't mean that I'm going to accept it. And I want to make sure that particularly for me, I want to make sure that if I recognize that I'm having a vulnerability on a given day, that I not only am honest with myself about it, but I'm willing to accept it. Because if I'm honest with myself about it and say, okay, my back is in a rough spot today and I can't do some of the things that I was planning to do. If I don't accept it, then what happens is I start to get into this mental and emotional pain where I start to feel less than, not good enough. I start to feel vulnerable. This is where, in my opinion, chronic pain, physical chronic pain, starts to create depression, which is extremely common with chronic pain, because I'm not accepting where I am at this moment in time. That doesn't mean it's where you're going to be forever. It just means that this is where I'm starting. It's our starting point. And this feeds into another level of this communication system that we have is boundaries. And this is really important, because if I'm here, just standing, this is me, I've got boundaries, but let's say I want to pick something up, and let's say it's 40 pounds. Well, if I'm strong and healthy, then that 40 pounds fits within that boundary that says, I'm good, I got this. But if I'm having a difficult pain day, my pain boundary may actually be somewhere in here, where it's like, yeah, you can only do about 10 pounds right now. And if you do 40, it's going to hurt a lot. And it may put you back down for a few days. So then the pain boundary becomes different than what I think or believe that I can do. This is where the acceptance comes in. If I'm being honest with myself, I have no business picking up that 40-pound box, because my pain boundary is much shallower than what I typically can do because of my strength. So it's really important to understand, I don't want to not do anything, but I have to work within the boundaries that my body is willing to give me. This is where the concept of friendship starts to feed in. Because if you think about it, if a friend says, you know, I really need you to give me some space, and you don't give them space, what's going to happen to the friendship? If you ignore them, if you push them away, if you insist or impose yourself on them, that friendship's not going to last. This is where, that healthy boundary, if the friend is saying, I need a little bit of space, and you're pushing past that and saying, no, I need you to do this and I need you to do that, it's going to create conflict, and it's not going to be a friendship that's going to last. How do we establish this? So you've got this understanding of the pain signature, you've got the communication, the initial communication of the pain child kind of concept of getting down on their level and saying, what do you have to say? And then establishing those pinnacle pieces of friendship. And it's pain is one example, and that's what we're talking about, but it's really about becoming a friend to your own being inside, and working through that self-hate, that negative self-talk, and those kinds of things as we're exploring how to manage pain. The key to that is working with listening. And what I'd like you to do with me now is work on a basic practice. And this is going to be kind of working with the boundaries. What I'd like you to do, if you're listening to this and you're dealing with chronic pain, then I'd like you to pick a number where you are at this moment in time. So let's say Scale of 1 to 10, you're at a 4 right now, okay? As I'm asking you to do, we're going to do some very basic structural work. If your pain level starts going up as we're working, stop, have a seat, change positions, take a quick break, let your body settle. This is that first part of listening. I need to be paying attention to what my body's trying to tell me. From there, if your pain level's staying the same, that's okay. You're working within that boundary we were talking about. If it's not, if it's starting to go down, even better. Because now what you're doing is, as you're working within that boundary, you're increasing circulation, you're paying attention, and your body doesn't feel the need to scream at you anymore. And that's key to this. That's key to establishing that relationship. So please pay attention to this as we're working. And the movements are going to be pretty simple, but I don't want you to create a threat. So first, there's 3 points on the bottom of the feet I'd like you to pay attention to. Base of the big toe, base of the little toe, center of the heel. Ideally, the toes are relaxed, resting on the floor. Your feet are parallel to each other and between hip and shoulder width. Relax your knees, relax your hips. Let the muscles in the glutes, the booty muscles, let the muscles in the thigh relax a little bit. Lengthen the spine so you're working from a place of good alignment, a strong alignment. Feel those 3 points on the ground, let them be even and relaxed. And what I'd like you to do at this point is carefully drift towards the front of your foot, the front 2 points, to the point where your toes just start to grab, not to the point where you start to lose your balance. So you're just gently drifting forward. And what I'd like you to notice when you're in that front-loaded position is the tension that starts to creep up the backside of the body. Now slowly settle back into neutral. More of that even distribution of weight. Feel the difference? Now carefully, keeping your posture tall, your good alignment, gently sit back onto the heels, carefully, not to the point where you're going to lose your balance, but just to where your toes start to want to come up. So you're weighted mostly onto the heels. Notice how the muscles in the front line of the body start to tense up. They'll come up to whatever level, it just depends on the individual as to how much it comes up, but you should feel it up the feet, the shins, up into the knees, possibly thighs and abdomen. Now slowly settle back into neutral. From there, feel the 3 points on the ground again. Let your toes relax. What I'd like you to do from this position is go into a belly breath. So the inhale relaxes the abdomen out. Nice and gentle. I call this the art of Pucci. And then on the exhale, use your stomach muscles to gently squeeze the breath out. Shouldn't feel forced or effort, but breathe in, relax the belly. Breathe out and slowly settle. Inhale. Exhale, relax. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is very gently, on the inhale, drift towards the front of your foot, just the subtle work that we did a minute ago. And then on the exhale, gently drift back towards the heels. Again, just subtle work, not to the point where you're losing your balance. Inhale, drift forward slowly. Exhale, drift back. And what I'm asking you to do here, focusing on the breath, letting the breath guide the movement. So start your breath first and let that pull you forward. Exhale and let that gently push you back. As you play with this rocking back and forth, I'm going to continue to talk. Use your breath, inhale forward, exhale back. What I'm asking you to do here is using these subtle mechanics and a focusing of the breath. It's important to establishing that ability to listen, to feel what's going on inside your body on a subtle level. And what that does, the breath work will start to quiet your mind. The emotions will start to relax, and your body will start to settle. Now again, going back to this, if your pain level's going up, please take a break. If it's settled in even, or it's getting a little bit better, even better. But what we're looking to do is start to listen quiet the mind, relax the emotions, settle into the body, so we can start to listen to what's really there. Remember, if my mind and my emotions are ramped up, I'm not going to get a true indication of what my physical pain level is. So I want to be able to quiet the mind, relax the emotions, and settle into the body so that I can get a true indication of what my starting point is for working with the pain. That's when I get the handshake that says, "Hi, how you doing? I'm here to help. Let's work together and continue this journey." As you do that, as you start to establish that relationship, then the next level of work, back into the boundaries a little bit, is being able to recognize through this listening practice that you guys are working on, breathing in, drifting forward gently, breathing out, drifting back, you're quieting and listening, you're starting to establish that awareness that's necessary to say, okay, my pain level right now is at a 4, and if I continue to push, it's going to go to 5 or 6 or 7 or even 8, and at that point in time, I'm in trouble, right? I want you to be able to use that subtle practice, working on quieting your mind, relaxing your emotions, settling into your body, in order for you to get this relationship going here so that you notice when you're shifting up. And you can start to listen and say, okay, well, I just did this, and now my pain levels are up. So I'm going to need to recognize that I probably overdid it here. Maybe I spent half an hour too long in the garden. Maybe I spent too much time working on the car at one time. I had a Marine at one point who, tough Marine, really strong guy, significant back issue, and he was really frustrated and angry because he always got his Christmas lights up in about an hour. And so what he would do is he'd push and get the Christmas lights up in an hour, but after his back injury, it would put him down for a couple of days. Through our work together, the very next year, come around Christmas, he did a lot more of this. He established this relationship and started listening more. So it took him 2 days to get his Christmas lights up in 30-minute intervals, but he didn't have any pain. And that was key because it gave him his life back. He was able to do what he wanted to do, but he didn't have the pain associated with it. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I know there's a whole lot more to cover. I wish you well on your journey, and please be gentle with yourself. Thank you for your time.